All right, guys, so these are our notes for Unit 2 function notation. So as we discussed in class, f of x is going to be the same thing as y. So just like in middle school where you might have had y equals mx plus b, this y is now going to be replaced with f of x. So let's say I have f of x equals mx plus b. These two work out the same. Okay, so in this activity, you'll see sometimes they're going to be giving you an x, and that means that you're going to find y, or they may give you a y and tell you to find x. So let's look at the example they gave us here. So as you see, they're saying that f of x and y, that's the same thing. And in this particular function, they're giving us f of 3. Okay, so what that means is I want the value of this function at 3. I want that y value. And all this means is that x is equal to 3. So the equation they gave me, or the function they gave me, is f of x equals 3x minus 15. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug in 3 where I see x. My x was right here, so all I did was replace it with 3. Okay? And I'm going to bring down my notation because I'm trying to find the value of x at 3. Okay? So from here, I'm just going to pretty much multiply this out or solve this. So I'm going to have 3 times 3, that's 9. 9 minus 15 is negative 6. So this is the answer that I'm looking for, but you do want to make sure you bring down your function notation. So my answer, or my full answer, is f of 3 equals negative 6. If it's easier, you could just write it as a point because this is a coordinate point. This is my x, this is my y. So this is like saying when x is 3, my y is negative 6. And if I was to do it on a graph, because this is going to be a graph, okay, my function would probably cross somewhere right here. So this, we can say that this represents 6, negative 3. I know that's not a graph, but that's what it's going to be looking like. So it's going to be pretty much just a coordinate point. All right. So let's look at some other examples. Okay. They gave us g of x, so notice they can give you f of x, g of x, h of x. And some of my students earlier said, well, Miss Sasu, why is it so many letters? It's Algebra 1, that's kind of what we like to do, but I promise you it's not that bad. So it works just like f of x, and I'm pretty much just trying to find g when x is negative 2. So all I'm going to do, again, is replace x with negative 2. Okay, so x was here, so all I did was plug that in. Then I'm just going to solve it out. So I have negative 24. I bring down my plus 1. And negative 24 plus 1 is negative 23. And that's my answer. So g of negative 2 is negative 23. In other words, when x is negative 2, y is negative 23. Okay, let's look at another example. So they gave us h of 0. Okay, so again, I'm going to replace my x with 0. And I'm going to just simplify it out or solve it out. Okay, so I'm going to have negative 8 times 0, which 0 times anything is 0. Then I bring down negative 2. And 0 minus negative 2 is negative 2. So I bring down my notation. H of 0 equals negative 2. Again, in other words, when x is 0, y is negative 2. Okay, so these here are a little bit different. And g of x, these two belong to each other. So I'm looking at these two go together. Okay. So when they give you g of x equal a number, they're giving you the output. Okay, so these, they gave us the input because it's inside the parentheses. So I like to kind of say input inside parentheses. I know input is x. It's an equal sign here, so they're outputting 37 and they're telling me to find the x. So what's going to happen here And let's just rewrite our function just so we don't get confused. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be replacing my y, or my g of x, with 37. Again, remember we said that this is the same thing as y equals 37. So I'm going to fully replace. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have 37 equals 12x plus 1. And now I'm just going to solve for x. So when I solve for x, I subtract 1 from both sides. I have 36 equals 12x. I divide both sides by 12. Those cancel out. And then I have x equals 3. Okay, so this is saying when y is 37, my x is 3, which is what I just found. Okay, or you can write it as f of 3, or f at 3 is 37. All right. This next one belongs to our h of x. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to bring it down so we don't get confused. And this time they gave me h of x equals 14, which means they're telling me y equals 14. So I'm going to replace h of x with 14. Okay, remember when you replace, you want to fully remove. I've seen some students earlier, they were still writing the h or writing, the notation. You're fully replacing it. Okay, so from here, I'm just solving my equation. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 14 plus 2, that's 16. I'm going to bring down my negative 8x. I divide by negative 8. Those cancel out, and I have x equals negative 2. Okay, so again, because they gave me y, so when y is 14, my x is negative 2. Or you can say f of negative 2 equals 14. All right. So hopefully that made sense. Also make sure when you watch these videos, you can also rewind or slow it down or go back. Because these videos are intended to be kind of quick. Because no one would watch a 30-minute math video. I know y'all. So if you need to rewind before we go to the next step. Okay, so now we're going to look at a graph. So if you remember from middle school, the horizontal axis is your x-axis and the vertical one is your y-axis. So what they're giving you here is 2 functions. They gave you a blue one, which is f of 1, and they gave you a red one, which is f of 2. So what that means is whatever number they give me, that's what I'm going to. So number 1 is going to go with my blue function. Also number 3. So if you have colors, feel free to color that in. And my red function is going to go with number 2 and number 4. So this is saying that x is 1. So I'm going to ask myself, where is x1? This is my x-axis, so this is where x is 1. Okay, so they gave me x. That means that I'm trying to find y. I'm going to go up to where the graph intersects. Boom, right there. And then that y value is 4. So when f of 1, or when f1 of 1, let's see how I want to say this. F of 1 at function 1 will be 4. Okay, in other words, it's a coordinate point. You have 1, 4, which is right here on your coordinate plane. Okay, the next one, and let's erase this. Okay, the next one, they want us to go to function 2 where x is 2. So x is 2 right here. I'm going to go up to the red one this time. Okay, and I'm going to go over. Okay, and I believe this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so actually I messed up on this one. Okay, so this should have been 5. I counted 1 off. Okay. So forgive Miss Sasu. Okay. So this is 4. Okay. So when X is 2 on my red function, my Y is 4. Okay. So now let's do the next one. They gave me X is 0 this time. So this is your origin, right? Whenever you have 0, 0, that's your origin. So I'm going to go up to the blue one. And this point here is 0, 4. So I'm going to say when f of 0, or when X is 0, my Y is going to be 4 for my function 1. And lastly, let's look at this next one. We have the second function at X is 0. So actually the red one meets right at the origin. So that answer is going to be 0. Okay. So hopefully you understand this. If not, please feel free to attend tutorials. Those are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. So yeah, let me know.